I think I've been saying it here that there are two types of people in America. There are two types of African Americans in America, or two types of blacks, however you want to call yourself, in America. The first are those who migrated. The first are those who left here and migrated through different routes. Your Majesties, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for always returning. Trust you and yours are well and you are loving yourself and others like always. Many thanks to all of you for the support you give to the channel. Thank you so much to our channel members, to our anonymous supporters, to all of you my esteemed subscribers. You're loved, celebrated and appreciated. Okay, it's not story to you anymore that very soon narrative will change, because they are gradually trying to change narrative before our faces, telling us that the whole of Africa was empty until the white man came with hospitals, before Africa started seeing population of people. That is to say, we are not originals to Africa. They want to take our birthrights before our faces. And like I keep telling you, things like this does not just happen overnight. It starts gradually and takes form, takes shape, takes narrative. This is how they begin to tell you things gradually, and before you know it, it has become a school of thoughts. It is now passed down to children in schools, and that is how it happens. So today I want us to listen gradually to how Africa got to the New World, how Africa went through America, how Africa excavated the whole world before time. Okay, now there is this narrative they push to the world that Africa, as Africa was barbaric, Africa do not know what civilization was. And you know, I always debunk that with facts here, that you can't tell me that my ancestors never knew what technology and civilization is, which is it's a lie, because our ancestors knew all these things. And a lot of Africans would be like, if our ancestors knew these things and were this powerful, why were they taken over by the enemy? There's a lot of factors to that as well, which we have been talking about here on this channel. Now, they want to tell you that Africans never knew what ships were, and they want to tell you that it is when the ship of the Europeans came to the shores of Africa that Africa knew what ship is. But it is not true, because our ancestors had already developed ships that took them on the waters to you know, migrate around the globe. Because when we keep telling you that Africa excavated, Africa went through the whole world, discovered the whole world. When you're talking about discovering new lands, Africans were the first to discover other parts of the world, because they had to migrate out of the continent as well. There were groups that migrated out and went out, brought in information, brought in different type of food, brought in different, okay, this is what we saw growing here, we can also have it grow in our own land as well. There were a group of people that did that. And that is where we talk about, it is out of here life started and went out. Okay, you can do your research about these things that we discuss here, because sometimes it's easier to say things and then to be like, oh, how are we sure that what we're saying is the truth? But you have to do your research as well to be sure if what we're saying is the truth, right? I think I've been saying it here that there are two types of people in America. There are two types of African Americans in America, or two types of blacks, however you want to call yourself, in America. The first are those who migrated. The first are those who left here and migrated through different routes. Through water, through the forest, through other parts of the sea, to Europe, to America. The second group are the ones that were recently taken as slaves to America. So there were already blacks existing in America before those that were taken out of here as slaves. So there are two types of blacks in America. There are two types of blacks in the whole of Europe. The ones that migrated themselves on water and on land, and the ones that were taken as slaves. These are facts that we should not ever mix up. There is a fact that people were taken as slaves, and they have to pay reparation for that act that they did. And another fact that there were blacks who were living in this developed world before they came and took other group of blacks as slaves to Europe and America. Let's listen to this and then we take it up from there, Your Majesties.
How did these Africans come to the New World?
Okay, now one of the things, as I have pointed out, in the metallurgy, like the steel, etc., in astronomy, etc., there is a profound misunderstanding of African capacity. The Africans had ships. This is one of them. This is in East Africa. This ship, this is just a model which I found in Fort Mombasa in Kenya. This ship is a 70-tonner. Ships like these in the 13th century before Columbus took elephants to China, right across the Indian Ocean. But this is just, they had ships like this in East Africa before Christ, but there were ships in North Africa along the Mediterranean that were far more sophisticated than any ships the Europeans had. European shipping is not even European. The sail Columbus used comes out of the Arab-African world. The astrolabe comes out of the Arab-African world. They found in the desert before Columbus, in the period before Columbus, the Africans were using compasses and nautical instruments to navigate the desert. They had these instruments which were used to navigate the sea. They've done studies recently of navigation in West Africa showing the Africans did have boats along the Niger. The African had boats that could take 3 camels aboard ship. They had cabins, all of these along the Niger, which opens, if you go down the Senegambia at a certain point, it opens out into the Atlantic. And the Africans did have empires with an Atlantic border.
This is a simple question. It's going to sound simple, but you're talking about black people.
Yes.
Okay.
And on several occasions, Africans were able to make that journey. If you look at a map of currents, and we will look more closely at this later on in the program, you will see there are 3 currents that take you from Africa to America. Africa is half the distance from America as is Europe. Not only is it half the distance, it is far easier to get from Africa to America because the currents take you automatically. In other words, you don't have to know of the existence of America. Even Columbus was not aware of the existence of America. He came off the North Atlantic. Columbus thought he was going to India, and he struck out for the latitude of Japan, hoping to land in India, and he swore he was in India. That is why people like myself are called West Indians. I'm the Indian he found in the West. And Americans are called American Indians because he thought they were in India. So that you have these currents which take you automatically. European ships did not use these currents until the second voyage, when Columbus used that knowledge which he got from the Portuguese about Africans. On the third voyage, on the second voyage, Columbus heard from the American natives in Hispaniola, which is now known as Haiti and San Domingo, that Africans had come to the Native Americans. The Americans told Columbus that. He recorded it in his journals that Africans had come to them trading in gold-tipped spears. Columbus sent samples of those spears. They were studied, they were surveyed in Spain, and they were found to contain the same ratio of gold, silver, and copper alloys as those found in West African Guinea.
So were these Africans swept along this current?
Yes.
Or did they come purposely?
Initially, it was an accident. Just like initially Columbus's so-called discovery, rather his coming here in a late period, was an accident.
What's the name of this current?
There are several of them. There's the South Equatorial Current, there's the North Equatorial Current. These currents come, there's a current coming off the Senegambia coast, there's a current coming off the Cape Verde Islands, there's a current coming up from the southern part of Africa. These currents all move towards South America, into the Caribbean, into the Gulf of Mexico. And there's a return current. And we have evidence that Africans not only went, but in a late pre-Columbian period, they also returned, because we found American things which the Africans brought back. Just as we have found African things in America, they found American things which the Africans brought back with them, such as the cotton in the Cape Verde Islands.
Are these currents still?
Oh yes, for thousands of years, these currents have been in existence. This has been tested. 200 small boats, some of them smaller than the major African boats, have crossed the Atlantic. They have been tested. Heyerdahl, Thor Heyerdahl, the Norwegian explorer, got Africans to build a ship used long before the birth of Christ, used in Egypt and Ethiopia. And this ship was made of papyrus reed. and the scientists said it couldn't float. And Hayat Al insisted, and the Africans under Abdullah Djibrin built the ship, and it crossed the Atlantic successfully to America.
Your Majesties, these are facts of our history. These are our stories. This is our stories. And this is what we should be teaching our younger ones. This is what our generations should be learning. Now, it's good we don't mix things all up. Okay? It's good because it's easier to mix things up as we are on the quest of trying to see that we get to the bottom of the whole situation. But it's good we don't mix things up. There were Africans already in America before the slavery, because there are two types of blacks in America. The first are those who went by water and by land and discovered the new world, America. There are some that went recently through slavery in America. These are facts that cannot be disputed, and it is good we don't mix things up, because that school of thought that just want to cut off this issue of Americans, Europeans came to Africa and took slavery. We can't just cut off that part of the story. This is some people's history. Let's not just try that. Because you want to feel like, okay, you're original to America and you want to cut off the story of slavery. Why? It did happen. They did came to the shores. They did force people out, and some African chiefs did give out some of their slaves, which is also a fact. But something led to that. There was a manipulation that led to that, which we have discussed. We've gone past that already, so I don't want to bring that back here. And there were Africans who migrated the sea and discovered America prior to Columbus. So the history that tells you that Columbus discovered America, something is also wrong with that. You know, the more we go back, the more we try to understand ourselves, the more truth will be exposed to us. But if we sit down with one narrative and feel, okay, we are okay with this narrative, then we cannot put this together and get what is what. Getting the truth of the whole situation. Your Majesties. Now, the Africans had ships before Columbus, and these ships were far more sophisticated. Now, how can a group of people that were accused of being illiterate know how to craft ship that is far sophisticated than the ones that was in the era of Columbus? Please answer me. Because you heard one of them seated in their mainstream media saying that Africa was empty. It is when their white people came and started building hospitals that people started coming to Africa. He said Africa was empty. That is to say, we never had civilization. How can people who never had civilization know how to craft ship that is sophisticated more than even what Columbus used to navigate the sea to America? How? You answer that yourself. Leave a comment there at the section. How can a people that they term to be uneducated, barbaric, know how to craft a ship that is more sophisticated? Number two, how do you think our ancestors navigated the desert if they had no knowledge? Because the media have painted our ancestors as people who were never civilized, they're barbaric. All thanks to Europe and America, Africa now can survive. A lot of you Africans believe in this Eurocentric ideology, that it is because Europe and America came to Africa that Africa had light. Africa was a dark continent before Europe and America came in. Many Africans buy this Eurocentric ideology, live with it, and then see the white man as the savior who had come to save Africa. So, how do you think our ancestors navigated the desert if they were not knowledgeable? This is something you need to give me answers to. You need to give me answers to them, because I need answers. For some of you that believed that there was nothing good happening in your motherland, there was nothing good happening in the life of your ancestors, There was nothing good happening in the life of those who were before you until Europe and America came. How do you think your ancestors survived and navigated the desert? Sometimes there are critical questions that we need to ask ourselves so that we gradually begin to unearth the truth for ourselves, and not just ourselves alone, so that we can pass this truth on. Something happened to the passing on of truth, and that is why we are stuck in this situation today. Something happened along the line that the truth was uttered. If we keep sitting and folding our hands like this, these people will create another narrative and force it on us. And by the time we are not there anymore, our descendants will grow and believe a narrative that is different, the way we had grown and believed narratives that are different today. A lot of things that we know about ourselves as Africans is not true, especially the negative things. They are not true. Now, why do you think there is effort put in to propagate negative ideas about Africa? Because it is when they propagate negative things about us that they can suppress us and still steal from us. They've been stealing, they want to keep stealing forever, because without us there is no way that they can survive, and they are aware of this fact. What do you think? Leave your thoughts and opinion there at the section, and I'll see you in my next one. Until then, love yourself, love others, stay safe, stay positive, always your majesties. Bye for now.